But yeah, really for today, guys, hopefully not really too much new. Normally we would set up a booklet or a brochure sort of document, some sort of page in InDesign, right? However, for a display of our work, there's a lot easier tools that we can use that you've already started using, right? Such as Illustrator. So for your competition project, I think that you guys need a 8.5 by 11 by 11 by 17, right? Some of you guys may actually want those to be touching or not touching, right? So I mean, what's nice is that we can digitally make this first before we print it out, and it can even help us with our printout situation. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Illustrator. I'm going to click on New File, and just by default, honestly, you can make anything here because it can be changed. In our case, I'm going to stick to the basics. I'm going to stick print, and of course change this to inches. Right? I do need an 11 by 8.5, so I can definitely use that. In fact, I know that I'm going to need 2 artboards of them at different sizes. I can also choose my orientation here if I so please, but again, all of these can be changed in the document. So I'm going to go ahead and press create, and it's going to give me 2 11 by 8.5s, right? If I do Command R or Control R on Windows, it's actually going to bring up a little ruler. If you haven't noticed already. And it even tells us where the 0 is, -2, -4, it goes, and basically it's a flat digital space. It's almost like the top view of our Rhino space. But essentially whatever is on this white square and is referred to as an artboard in Illustrator will be printed on that board, right? So the first thing that we can do is File, Document Setup, and edit our artboards, right? Because at least for ours, and in fact, I'll do both options just to kind of show you guys. I can click on this artboard or I can click on this artboard, and I can tell it to be a different size, right? So instead of that, I'm going to choose 17, and it's going to do it centrally, right? So I can hold Shift if I want to keep it in a perfect direction. You guys see what happens when I do Shift. It either chooses a 0 or a 45 angle, right? So I'm going to move that, and this is where I can decide if, well, do I need space, or do I want this sort of thing to happen where I can put an image in the middle, and when those 2 pieces of paper are perfectly aligned, they actually create an image. Does that make sense, guys? So there is options here. However, we can actually do quite a few of them. You may want something that actually already has a dedicated space, right? So plan for it from the beginning, right? I mean, there's no reason to kind of do something else physically if you can just model it digitally, right? So we have that situation. Let's try another one, because I heard you guys could also do a vertical, right? So File, Edit Document Setup. Oh, I chose the wrong one. Document Setup, Edit Artboards, right? We can make a whole nother one, right? So I'm going to make 2 more, and just really at varying sizes, because again, I can always click on it and change that size. So in this case, I'll need 11 by 8.5 and 11 by 17. Enter, 17, enter. So now those are perfect, and even the program starts to help me out, right, in terms of what I can do. So already right there, I have both options already ready to go, right? Now, I don't really have any architectural imagery today that I can really place in here, but once I click on any of the other tools, this gets locked into place, and if I do need to change it again, the same thing, right? File, Edit, Artboard. What's nice about this though is now it's all in 4 separate sheets. So when I hit print, it's actually going to consider this one number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 in the order that I created them, right? So do be aware of that, right? You don't want to make too many and then get rid of some, and then because then you have artboard 1 and artboard 16, and you're like, wait a minute, right? Anyway, but we have both. The way that I would place my imagery, I could either drag it in from, say, Photoshop, or I would save it as, honestly, Illustrator takes a lot of different files. So if you had a DWG, you could literally take your floor plans, put it right here, make some line weights, call it a day, right? Perhaps I have something I already photoshopped and I want to put those images here. Perfect. Perhaps I want to title my page, which of course should be the case for everybody, and title it, right? Obviously, I don't want Pig Latin, but I could title it, right? Title of the project, and so on and so forth. And I can do a lot more here than I could say in terms of the setup of, like say in Photoshop. And again, remember that conversation we had where we make text and where we make images, right? Illustrator is a good platform besides InDesign. Like I said, normally all of this would just be InDesign and it would just be a page. However, I do think it's a little more practical right now. Instead of teaching you a whole nother program, let's use the programs we already know, right? And have been working with, such as Illustrator. So we got the title of the project, you know, if I wanted that on both sheets. But I do want to show some examples of what I'm talking about. So since these two pieces are put together, right, and say I do have something that, for instance, goes over both. So let's place an image. File, we'll go to place, right, place ... in fact. And I basically just need an image. Let's get something from my architecture files. Let's see. I know I got some imageries somewhere, just a bunch of them. No. Well, I mean, that's one. That's a good example. And it's what we're already doing. And let's say, you know, I did want it across both pages or something. Right? Let's say that was dead in the middle for some reason, right? So I was done. I've got everything. You know, I've got my floor plans in the right spot. Another thing that I can use to my disposal are lining up things. So if I hover over this ruler, I can drag lines out. What's nice about these lines is they don't print, right? And you can also move them, you can delete them, and lock them into place, which is also really nice, right? But what's nice about this is I can start to divvy up the spaces, right? Anyway, what was that? How do you what? Lock them. Good question. So you can take that ruler, and it doesn't look like you can right click on them anymore. That's okay. But let's go to Object, Lock, Selection. Yeah, so basically what you would need to do is select that line, right? So you see what I did there? Basically I select those two lines, they turn blue when they're selected. I would go to Object, Lock, Selection, right? And how I would unlock them is, because obviously now I can't move them, right? And you can just panic, or you can go to Object, Unlock All, right? And of course those will become highlighted again. Great question. But let's say I was finished, or let's get some more imagery on there so we can really tell what's going on. Otherwise we're just gonna be like, so what? It's cut off, right? Let's get some more imagery. Let's go to Graphics 3. There's Graphics 1. Where the hell did Graphics 3 go? There it is. No, that's Design 3. Graphics 2, Graphics 1, Computer Graphics. This is annoying. Anyway, let's get some imagery. Let's put my exercise in there. Why not?
Sorry.
Yeah.
When you print them, I know these are all like separate sheets, but is it all going to be on one page, one large?
No.
They're going to be separate.
They'll be separate. So if she has a really good question. She asked, since I've made separate artboards, will this be printable on one piece? The answer is no. In fact, I need to make an artboard that represents that one piece. So for instance, in her case, what she would do is make an artboard that was that piece. Does that make sense? However, it would be the same measurement, right? Another thing that you could do is make that 36 by 36 that you are going to print, and you can make that border for yourself so you know where to cut to, right? I would use two separate sheets because that's less paper, it's less cost, less hassle of these big guys, especially if I know that I can get some fast prints out of. But she brings up a really good question, right? However, I could set up a printer to also print those two sheets together, but it's a lot harder to do, right? What I would recommend is actually making that one sheet that is true scale. Absolutely. Great question. But yeah, let's go ahead and print all these. So I just put some of my documents so that we can kind of see what's going on when we do print. right? Honestly, just kind of putting them there so you guys can see what happens. But let's say I was finished, I've got my document, this is my whole thing for my project, right? So I'm gonna go to File, Print, and it's gonna print all of them. Well, in my case, I'm not gonna print them, sorry. In my case, I'm gonna save as. And make sure that it's not an AI file, but of course a PDF. So I'll choose PDF. I'll put it on my desktop so we can find it a little easier. And I'll call it Graphics 3 Test. We'll go ahead and hit save. Like I said, we do want a high quality print, so I guess in my case I'm going to go with high quality. Press save. Now let's take a look at what we made. Oh. Might not be done. There it is. But as you can see, it separated all those artboards. So that first one that I drew, perfect. It's going to line up perfectly however I put those artboards on there, right? So if there was some of my image sort of in that little space, it will be gone, right? But as you can see, it's gonna make all the pages for me perfectly, right? It's gonna cut them off exactly where they need to be cut off, so that obviously we didn't put anything on that large one. So, but as you can see, it's non-separated. It is that one sheet. So I could easily tell the printer only print sheet number 5, right? In that scenario, or at least in my PDF. But fairly simple, right? Honestly, not that bad, and it's useful, right? It's something. How many times have you needed to print a gigantic image and these guys aren't working? Exactly. So could I set up a bunch of 11 by 17s all lined up and put a big image on it? Yes, right? I can press print and it's going to save it in the order that I even need it. How awesome is that, right? Anyway, this is how we used to put. One time we made a large banner at Texas Tech. There's like this senior prank thing that everybody does, right? And one time we made a gigantic banner that, you know, said like keep the lights on or whatever, right? But we made it out of 36 by 36 sheets, right? And it was the size of our building, right? We got them to hang it off the thing. It was an awesome prank, right? But it looked and appeared like one gigantic piece of paper. It was also one of the architect students who made that file, right? Every single artboard. And when he made that PDF, that was also like 5 gigabytes. We managed to finally get them all printed, but he didn't draw them in order. So we learned very quickly, like, oh shit, we got to put this puzzle piece together, right? Even. But what's nice is it's going to order it for you, right? So I wouldn't say do this for a portfolio, right? That would be, you got to use the right programs for the right idea, right? But in that scenario, that worked because we needed one big sheet, right? Anyway, other questions, guys? It's really kind of all I wanted to show. Yes.
Are you recording, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And I apologize for my French and saying shit. Anyway. No other questions, guys? The 3 that were asked were very good. So if you have any more, please let me know. Sound good?
Oh, this is recorded, right?
Yes. It's funny how much that question is always on the recordings. This is recorded, right? Yes.